just figuring things out. I'm genuinely happy, actually, that my speech is coming right after Dr. Abhilasha's speech, because some of the points you touched on, which is critical thinking and the way to observe the world. And the other one is thematic curriculum, the way that you viewed curriculums as themes, which is pretty much what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm not going to be talking about any statistics about STEM or how what is so special about STEM or any definitions or any research findings. But what I'm going to share with you is a teacher-to-teacher experience. And basically, the other thing I'm actually excited about, that Dr. Abhilasha, you're a chemist, right?
Yes.
So I have a question for all of you, especially you, Dr. Abhilasha, which is, why can't you burn H2O? Sounds like a stupid question, I know, it's an absurd question. But I know you can evaporate water easily. You can just heat up water and it evaporates. But why can't you burn water?
We can.
You can't, no. Water cannot be burned, but why can't you? You can't. But why? What's the reason? I know chemists, I know chemists can come up with an explanation with formulas and bonds and complicated stuff that I hated all my life. I was never into chemistry. I learned to love chemistry as I grew up, but I was never into it. But I tried to come up with the simplest explanation for my students, which is basically, water is basically burnt. It's like the coal version of wood. If you burn wood, it turns into coal, you can't burn it anymore. If you burn hydrogen, it forms water, and then you can't burn it anymore. You can evaporate it, you can smash the coal, but you can't burn it anymore. So answering simple questions, or like, stupid questions in a simplest way possible to share information with the students in a certain way. I got another question for you. How much does the internet weigh? Like, what is the weight of the internet? Can you actually measure the weight of the internet? And I'm not talking about the servers or the wires or the devices. I'm talking about the data in kilograms. Can you actually measure data in kilograms? We know data have size. It's like in megabytes or like kilobytes, gigabytes. But can you measure data in kilograms? And some of you is probably on their phones asking ChatGPT. I'm ahead of you. There you go. I asked ChatGPT, and surprisingly, this time it didn't have the answer. It just responded in a way as if I asked a stupid question. It said, well, it doesn't have any, it's not physical, doesn't have any mass, so you can't measure the internet in kilograms. But I beg to differ, so I dug deeper into it. And the way I did it is the way we usually do things in our school, structured way of research in every class. So there are approximately 100 million servers that make up the internet, that makes the internet actually work, 75 to 100 million servers. And servers are basically at the most basic level, they're made of memories, chips and memories. And those memories can be programmed. And by programming memories, you can fill it up with electrons, and you can drain it from electrons. So you see where this is going. Electrons have a mass, very tiny mass, 10 to the minus 31 of a kilogram. And all of those servers working at a certain amount of electricity, we know that logic circuits, which are memories, use around 3 volts of energy with some fancy math and some physical equations that actually exist. You can do the calculation, which is around 50 grams, which is approximately the weight of a strawberry. And that's the weight of the internet. So I like to call these absurd questions quizzacious. Not a very popular word, I know. Quizzacious is actually when you ask a question in a way that is kind of sarcastic. You're not really serious about the question. They sound like absurd, stupid questions. But actually what I've learned is that there are no stupid questions. You can always ask those kind of questions in class. And what I found out actually from my teaching experience is that if you ask such questions to the students, you'll train them somehow to keep asking some of those questions in that way. Those questions in class, they're great class starters, to be honest. They can spark those chain of questions and discussions in the classroom for like 5 or 7 minutes before you get into your lesson. But then how do you connect it to your lesson, and how is this connected to thematic curriculum? So to give you a little bit of my background, my name is Iyad Salami. I'm the automation and robotics engineer. I'm a mechatronics engineer. I work in Qatar in Science Technology Secondary School, which is a STEM school. We're pretty much heavy on STEM, from science labs to power electronics to virtual reality, augmented reality, fab labs. We work on crazy projects. We do 50 to 60 research projects a year. And we, actually the green one is my favorite. And we do like from drones to electric vehicles, you name it. In our school, in the past 5 years, since 2018 actually, to be honest, we've been killing it. From accreditations to awards to you name it, robotics, competitive research, Olympics, you name it. Even in the last year, we in the science and award, student awards, school student awards nomination, I think we had like at least 20 to 30% of all of the awards for the Qatari schools. Not just to brag, but to show you some of the achievements that we had in the past 5 years. We graduated our first batch, our first class of students last year, and they went on to go to elite universities around the world. And this is what we've learned. So we're pretty much STEM. Like we're heavy on STEM, we're progressive education school. We keep changing our curriculums. We try to keep it fresh the whole time. But there is something that I always see that's missing. Something that we're not really digging deep into it. Like Dr. Ablash said, it's thematic. So the way I like to view it, it's like sciences are like different themes. They're like different colors or different shades. Thus the name, same thing, different shade. So they're like, as if knowledge is just a light, and then we've subdivided it into different themes. You know, math, chemistry, physics, biology, even English or history. It's all the same thing. At the base, at the foundation, it's just one thing that make up the universe, but we decided to look at them differently. And this is a thing that we don't really teach in class. And I think it's a shame that not a single science book mentioned the connection between how those sciences are connected, which I'm about to show you right now, which is nothing new. It's not new science, it's just the way you connect it. So how do we do it? If it's STEM, at the base, it's like knowledge and then branches out into everything else. Why are we trying to squeeze it into something called STEM? If all the sciences originally are just one thing, and all of the knowledge is just one thing, why are we trying, after we branched out into different subjects, now we're trying to squeeze them back into this thing called STEM? And I know it's been frustrating for some teachers. For background with chemistry, you need to learn coding. For some computer science background, you need to learn physics, which you run away from. That's why you ended up in computer science. I know that. I ran away from chemistry. So it's all about sharing the idea at the classroom level. It's coming from a teacher to teachers and all educators. So sharing the idea, I like to compare it to this. This is a picture of someone is going to a restaurant, probably average middle-aged man would go to a restaurant, take a picture, and then, you know, he posts on social media, you know, your friend is having a good time, he's at a restaurant, looks nice and fancy, and then you have people like this sharing Instagram stories like this, youngsters. They put more effort into it. There's more creative stuff into it. So this is like an analogy of how we share the idea. So how do we do this in class? How do you get more creative? Not in the STEM tools, not in the kits, not in the robots, not in the STEMtronics, mechatronic, new STEM that everybody needs to buy. Without any of those tools, putting the tools aside, I think we have shifted the focus from the actual learning objectives and onto how to use those tools. Class Dojo, Kahoot, those softwares, the Lego bots, the whatever, FTC bots, the big bots, and then all these STEM kits that everybody keeps buying. But that's not actually what I'm talking about. It's how you share the idea with your students in class. And my inspiration actually comes from the old age, the old times. Those scientists, the way they did observations, they used to sit, observe the world around them, and then make conclusions. So those scientists were actually always causacious. Back in the day, asking why did the apple fall is probably more absurd than asking what is the weight of the internet. But they asked these questions anyways to come up with the solutions. And what I found out actually after some research, all of those scientists from 400, 500, 600, even 1,000 years ago were all multidisciplinary. And then what happened? We moved away from being multidisciplinary, and I blame the Industrial Revolution. It pushed us and pushed education, pushed everyone to be more specialized. And now we're trying to walk back into being STEM because we changed from industrial revolution to the age of information. And now we're taking all these things that branched out and we're calling it STEM. And we're trying to squeeze it in together. When actually, I believe that we need to take a step back into the foundation. So to move up, the next step is something that Dr. Ablash also touched upon, which is the next step is to move from interdisciplinary into transdisciplinary, where you actually merge all of these things together. There are different themes. So how do you view all of these themes in like your analogy was like a rainbow, right? So the tool. How's the tool? I'm gonna explain this with a simple example, just like a teacher with students, because this is what I know. This is how I know how to do things. So you have this map that I created. It's not very clear, I know, but let me explain it with an example. So basically, if you want to teach a topic, let's say you want to teach a new topic, you have to teach this new topic in your book. First of all, find a previously taught topic that you already taught your students. They know it. And then link it to it. Since everything is one thing and all of the knowledge is just at one base, you will find there is going to be a link. There will have to be a link to anything you're going to be teaching, whether in your subject or in other subjects. So find other subjects and have them linked to it, but make sure they're previously taught. Why? Because the students already know them. So when you teach a new topic, they can reflect on something familiar, which is like teaching 101. Start with something familiar, right? And then eventually present the analogy. So allow me to do this with a simple example. Since everyone is into STEM, no one should be unfamiliar with what I'm gonna say. So step one, be quizzacious. Ask a ridiculous question in your class. Start with a broad question, a big question. I'm gonna start with something, that I'm really into, something I've been fascinated with ever since I was a kid. Why do you think computers are able to run simulations? We know they can. If you want to make it more interesting for your students, you can scratch simulations and say video games. Why do you think computers are able to run video games? Why can't they? We know they do, but why? So let's say you're a math teacher and you want to teach a simple subject. I'm gonna start with the simplest stuff I could find that everyone can understand. I want to teach surface area. So how do you get quizzacious about surface area? It's very simple. It's too simple to ask an absurd question. So a more specific question about surface area is, ever wonder why multiplication gives you this shape, this square or rectangular shape, when addition gives you this L shape? Sounds stupid and you think you have an answer, right? You would say, well, if you count 3 times 4, it's 12 and I have 12 squares. But if you add 3 and 3, you have 6 squares, and it's obvious, right? But this is not the way I want to dive into it. So if you have A times B, and you want to imagine a real-life situation, a realistic example, you have street A and street B. You can either walk on street A, or you can walk on street B. You can't walk on both together. So you can say that addition is like an OR operation. People with computer science background, I think you see where this is going, right? This is an OR operation. And this is more of an AND operation, because at any given time, any given point, you're gonna be walking on A and B at the same time. Wherever you're walking, it's an AB component. It's something new. So we can say that multiplication is like finding the common area, where addition is just a total thing. So it's about the common area, and that's the key word. And that's the thing also about STEM, the terminology. Already? So link it to a previous topic in your own field. Let's say Venn diagrams. So Venn diagrams between A and B, if you find the intersection is the common area, which is the common thing. So that's why areas can be viewed as intersections and addition as unity. So in other words, ANDing is like multiplication and intersection, and ORing would be like addition and unity. You want to expand this further? Let's go expand this idea. Now ask your students, what about this? Instead of A and B, you have A, B, C, D. You want to multiply them and add them all. What do you think the Venn diagram is going to look like? I don't know, maybe something like this. I'm not sure, I just came up with this. I'm not even sure if this is correct. So just expand the idea and make it more interesting in the class. Let's touch on biology. Any biologists in the room? Yeah. How do you think multiplication would apply in biology? You don't have to dive deep into it. So we say animals reproduce. We also say animals multiply. And I don't think the terminology is a coincidence here. So we have like two different, like one species, but like two different species of an animal. You see where this is going? So the common thing between this Persian cat and the Siamese cat is a little cute thing. It's called, I think this is a Himalayan cat. So as you can see, this is the biological thing in common between both of them. So as if you took two cats and multiplied them together. They did multiply. They got this new offspring. Circuits. Probably something you hate if you moved away from physics. But this is, I promise, I'm going to make this as simple as possible. So if you have A and B switches in a circuit, which one do you think is going to be multiplication? Which one is going to be addition?
The multiplication should be.
Actually, it's the other way around.
Not opposition.
And I'll explain why. And I'll explain why. A and B, if you want the light to be on, this little thing is LED with a blue circle. If you want it to be on, you have to push A and B both at the same time. So it's A and B. So it's like multiplying A and B. And I turned this off by mistake. All right. But if you, on the other circuit, if you want to turn on the light, it's either A or B. One of them will turn on the light. So you can say that this is multiplication circuit and this is an addition circuit, right? All right, let's see where this goes. So showing all of these different themes and like one lesson, one simple lesson, and showing students that there will always be a connection to all the sciences that you will teach. I think this is actually how to step up from interdisciplinary, where you just mention things together, and to transdisciplinary, where you map things right on top of each other. So to expand this more, just a little bit more. If B is open, then it's a 0. If A is closed, then it's a 1. And if you're in computer science, you know the possibilities or the probability of these happening. It gives you this truth table of zeros and ones. And if you want to code it in any programming language, use an if condition or if statement. Same thing for the other circuit. So eventually, moving from surface area to animals to all these different subjects, we ended up with a bunch of zeros and ones. You know what this is? It's binary, which is basically machine language. It's the language that machines understand. And you know what has billions and millions of circuits that can do multiplication and addition? Something that can understand machine language, which is your typical i7, i3, whatever processor. You see where this is going? That's the reason why computers can run simulations. Computers can run simulations because they can translate things in real life, like area, surface area, or animals, or anything, into simulations, into graphical representation. So what you see on the screen is just a graphical representation of the simulation. It's not the simulation. The simulation is what happened inside the circuit that was caused by the math. So if you want to do like a simple analogy between both of them, simple math and complex math, simple code, complex code is just translation from one language to another. And then simple circuit, complicated circuit, and then eventually you'll have simple graphical representation versus complex graphical representation, which is why computers can do simulations. So this is like one example that you can teach in your class in any of those subjects. So how do you use it for other classes? If you're an other teacher, you're not going to teach simulations. You're not into computer science. You're not into chemistry. Instead of thinking about it that you have to learn this new thing that you hated all your life, just think of it in a way that you're going to reflect it on something you already know. Just find a way to translate it into what you know. If you're into physics and you hate computer science, you don't learn coding, just find the equivalent of that code in your own subject. And then present it to the students, present it with the analogy. Show them that everything is connected down at the root and that it's all the same thing, it's just different colors and shades, it's just different themes. So the way I like to do this is first ask an interesting question and form it in an unusual way. Something that is absurd, and quosacious, as I like to call it. 2, find a path between that question, that absurd, stupid question, all the way to your topic. Just find this path. And then finally, next is break down that path into different themes. Break it into different pieces and rearrange those pieces, classify them into different dimensions: physics, biology, math, whatever, English, history. It doesn't have to be STEM, it can be all of it. And I turn this off again. And then finally, map everything around your own topic. If you're physics, map those things around physics. If you're teaching technology, map them around technology. If you're teaching biology, map them around biology. And finally, which is most importantly actually, involve your colleagues. So you have your map of all of these dimensions, all of these colors, all of these shades in your curriculum around your topic in an interesting way with those absurd questions. You have your lesson ready. Get your colleagues on board. So if you're teaching math, talk to the physics guy. If you're teaching biology, talk to the computer science guy. Tell him, hey, I'm going to be teaching this. How do you see this in your topic or in your subject that I can reflect in my class, in my topic, in my subject, on the class level, between you and the teachers and students? Thank you.
Thank you very much.